Welcome to another episode of Behind the Bars. Jason Wygant here. We're going to get behind the scenes of a very famous race in GNCC history, the 2010 Steele Creek GNCC in North Carolina. And we have two riders who were up on the overall podium that day. The idea of Grand National Cross Country is to race in nearly impassable conditions, but on this day, it actually literally became impassable, and we had to cut the race short. More on that in a moment. I'm Jason Wygant. I'll serve as your host. We'll have our riders on here in a second, but Jared Bolton, I'll bring you on. Also, you help build GNCC race courses these days, but back then, it's a rare circumstance. The track literally became unrideable.
Yeah, it's I was there. This was a few races before I started working, and looking back on it, I'm actually really glad I wasn't involved that weekend. That was not a situation that anybody ever wants to be in, and thankfully we've never been in that situation again. I would argue that we've probably been close to that, but never quite that bad again, and I hope we'd never have to do that ever again in the history of GNCC.
So how we do Behind the Bars, we'll show you the television show from that race, and we'll get the riders in it to comment. And I'll swing it over first to Josh Strang. You won that race that day. You won the title that year in 2010. You're still at it in GNCC these days with a bunch of podiums at the beginning of this year. But this Steele Creek race has to stick out for you because of the way it ended, I would think.
Yeah, it does. It's 2010, man. It's a long time ago. So no, I actually had to remind myself of the race. I do remember it being cancelled. It was just there's been so many since. It was you just had to remember what happened in this. I remember all I really remember is the end of the race when it all got shut off. So I mean, for me, I got lucky. I didn't have to do I think a lap and a half of the race. So for me, it was an easier day.
Yeah, it's good when you're out front and they call it. And then there was a young buck in the XC2, the 250 class that day, making inroads toward the front. That's you, Caleb Russell, now the GNCC champ in XC1. But you were just a 250 rider then and going in for the podium overall.
Yeah, it was a nice race for me for the simple fact that I was never really known as a mud rider, and especially back in 2010. And I just kind of started getting over the hump of becoming a better mud rider and straightening myself out mentally before the race. But I got some momentum going, and I got up there with Charlie and Wibbs, and just kind of rode their pace and was able to stay in front of them for most of the race. But I don't think I would have done any better than third if the race would have continued on. But I was pretty happy with where I was at the time.
Cool. All right, we'll go to it. We'll start the television show. RacerTV from back in 2010, and then we'll let the riders take you through it once we get started. It got crazy right off the start of round 2 of the GNCC. So we start every one of these shows with a review of the previous round. So Josh, you came in as a title contender, and you won the first 2 rounds of the year, if I remember right, in 2010, right? So you came into this with momentum.
Yeah, it was good. I'd moved, end of 2009, I'd moved to California, so I was flying back and forth each weekend, and it was good. Yeah, won the first 2 rounds, so I'd started off the year well, and it was, I was still a kid, so 22 years old, so I didn't really have much to worry about except to go race. And like you said, started the year off good. It was, I think I was having fun anyway.
Winning is always fun. You're on the Babbitt's Monster Energy Team Green Kawasaki squad now. The Suzuki team isn't around anymore, but that was still Suzuki heyday. That was a top-notch A-plus effort that you got to be part of back then.
Yeah, I think the Suzuki team back then was definitely one of the best teams at the GNCC. So it was a shame to see it go, but at the moment I'm happy where I'm at. But I got lucky back in 2007, and they kept supporting me, and then I was lucky enough to win a few races for them in 2010 and the championship.
Chris Bach. Remember the long, tall Chris Bach making moves toward the podium in these days. It was pretty wide open, I feel like, back then. Josh, did you have an idea necessarily when you came to the races, even early in the season, like, I'm going to race this guy and this guy, or was it you would get surprised sometimes who would step up?
Yeah, I think the first few rounds, I don't think Bach was even on. I don't know if this was his first year in the pro class or his second. I'm pretty sure it might have been his first year. And so I don't think anyone even thought he was going to be at the front. He almost won Florida, I think, and then he did well the next few races. So I think he was a surprise. Obviously, Wibbs, I think he was on a WR, so I think he was injured by a bike performance that in 2010, and other than that, I think Charlie and there was some other guys. I think at the start here, there was like 20 pros.
Let's hear what this young buck had to say.
Are you feeling any pressure going into this race today, being the points leader?
No, I mean, it's good. It's good to be back here in North Carolina and back to my home state, I guess you can call it. This is where I started GNCC, and it's good to come back and race again. And I'm just happy to be back the third round of GNCC and racing the RMZ 450 and hopefully get off to a good start and ride like I did the last 2 rounds. It was really good and get another win.
Yeah, Strang, you can tell by the accent, it's not a North Carolina.
Everybody getting all pumped up here. So Charlie Mullins there, the number 3. We already saw the 14. That's Bach, who is a contender early on. Wibbs on the number 1. There's Nate Canny on the 116. We won't even see you, Caleb, and you can just explain to people, Caleb, that don't know GNCC. You have to start in the second row, so that's what makes getting on the overall podium a big deal. What was it like for you on row 2 when you knew you had a deficit to make up?
I think it's a lot easier for the guys to catch up. I know it hasn't really happened this year, but I feel like in the XC1 class, you just take your time and you kind of pick right around the first lap and don't really take any chances. And those guys, the track's a little bit more broken in, and they tail into those guys, and they want to get up as far as they can because they know after the first lap they're probably going to get yarded. So I would always try to, charge up there and get behind a couple of fast guys, and it just really sets the tone for the rest of the race too.
So that's XC1 has taken off. We'll probably show, I would think, XC2 in just a moment. You do have the time adjustment, so if people are confused how it works, you start a minute behind, they adjust the clock by a minute, but you still got to not get slowed up by these guys trying to work your way forward. Now, Steele Creek's been on the schedule forever. Here we go. Here's XC2. Any idea what kind of start you're going to get? Not a good one, bro. Doesn't look good.
I think I was second.
That's not so bad. Is that UKJT getting a whole shot?
Yes, it is. Yep. Look, and he actually had the points lead. He had the points lead at that point as well. Like, he did pretty well, and it's, you guys really whooped up on him there eventually. He never, it took him a lot longer to win a championship than people expected.
Is that the old Fred Andrews team that he's part of there, where they switched to Yamaha?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, and actually that was the year that they switched to Husky, like the last 4 races. Middle of the year, switch bike brands.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he went 1-2 at the first 2 rounds, and I went 3-1. So he's got the points by like 4 on me going into this race.
All right, so Josh, you're out front. I always say this in GNCC, when you're out front, you eventually get to lap traffic or a bottleneck or something. I always say it's like a pace car in car racing, like the caution flag comes out. Are you thinking, I'm just going to try to break away, or do you kind of in the back of your mind, something's probably going to mess it up, and I'm probably going to be in a battle at some point? How does that work, Josh?
Well, if you ask me present day, I wish I could just say I could break away and and pull away. But back in 2010, I think I felt like if I was at the front halfway or towards the end of the race, I felt like I was capable of winning. So I think this race for me to be out front and maybe pull a small gap was kind of rare, but I don't know. I just must have been feeling good that day.
And there's Wibbs on that WR. Yeah, it was so weird. Wibbly won the title the year before. Geico team, they rode Cowie's. Cowie didn't give him any support, so he moved to Yamaha with the #1 plate. So he didn't win the title with Yamaha. He did later, but not this year. So, we already got pit stops underway. We'll be back here in a minute. You guys want to talk about the Steele Creek track? It's been around forever. Seems pretty similar year after year. Watch some quad 4x4 highlights here. Bolt on, just tell me what Steele Creek's all about, and I'll let the riders comment too.
Yeah, Steele Creek, I'd go back to Buren Hamrick, that laid out the tracks for many years with Jeff Russell. Buren has a saying, and he says it about some of his tracks too for his Mid-East series. Steele Creek is Steele Creek. It's basically you're either going clockwise or you're going counterclockwise. It's a good piece of property, but unfortunately, you're limited on space. You can kind of only do so much, and you pretty well got to use what's already there. The good thing is people love what was there. So, you know, it kind of worked out in a way, but then, you know, it's a real love-hate thing for people at Steele Creek.
What do you think of it, Caleb? I'll start with you. What do you think of the Steele Creek track?
I've always enjoyed Steele Creek. It's always, you know, it's a good time of year. It's usually the dirt's always really good, and you know, the weather's nice. So I've always liked it. I like the hills. I like how rough it gets and rutted. It's really like a normal track through the woods in a lot of areas. So I've always seen I've always, you know, my track record there is really good. So I always enjoy it. It's up and down. It's hard, slick in areas from being polished off. And I remember this year being extremely slick, like down in the pits and anywhere where it was like clay, the red clay, it was just ice. But it's got like two different types of dirt here. There's like some black stuff. It's like real rich and loamy and ruddy. And then there's some like your typical North Carolina red clay. So.
What do you think, Strang?
Yeah, I mean, looking at this video, it's crazy. The track actually looks like really smooth come afternoon race compared to what it has the last 3 or 4 years. So, and I think that's just because the dirt just gets taken away from this place, and it's so hard to repair because of the steep hills and that. So, like this weekend here in 2010, the track looks fairly smooth. But like Caleb was saying, if it gets any rain or any moisture on it, once you get up on top of the hills, it just turns to ice. So there's a lot of different terrain here, and I've enjoyed the track too in the past. It's been fun and it's close. I mean, for a couple of years I think I was staying in my own bed, so I like not having to travel real far to the races. And the people that turn up to this race are absolutely crazy. So I think it was marked on the Morgantown calendar as a place to come in March, April. So people just come out of the woods to turn up and drink whatever they had in their cooler.
Yeah, not Gatorade.
Yeah, no.
Looking pretty good here. That's Corey Buttrick there, the number 8, hunting you down. That was Bolt on. You remember Corey B was on fire his rookie year. He even won the overall at John Penton later in the year. He was really strong when he first got on the big bike.
Yeah, he did really well that entire year even, and then on into the next year a bit. You know, it's Corey's had a rough go the last few years, but you know, there's still you can never take away that John Penton win. That'll always forever be on his record. And some really solid rides.
Strang could have took it away.
Yeah, that's true.
No, Corey, like I remember Corey getting second at this one, but looking at the video, I didn't remember him being that close. And he's always been good in the mud. I think you go to all the mud races at GNCC, and if Corey was riding well, he would be at or towards the front. So to see him here battling for more than just like a lap or two, I think it was pretty cool. And like you said, he had a good year this year, and he won the Penton, which was I don't think it was super muddy. It had some muddy sections, but yeah, it's unfortunate he's had some injuries and that sort of stuff, but he was definitely good this year.
Okay, so when you go back and read about this race, it was really about how it started raining right before it started. Kind of get an idea on the video. I don't know if either of you guys remember that well. Was it like a super mudder? Because you really can't quite tell by watching it how bad it really is. So
well, you
do
can
you guys
see,
remember if it was super muddy or what?
You can see the raindrops on that tree right there. So I can't remember it raining that heavy, but like we said, this place gets 10 minutes of rain, it's slick as ice. And then because the track is cut into the hill, it's not like a race where there can be 20 or 30 lines. There's like 1 or 2 lines.
Yeah, I remember it it was already like moist. The track was already a little bit damp, like really good conditions. And then it just kind of drizzled, and it drizzled a little bit harder like on the second lap. And then it might have like rained for like 5 or 6 minutes, like not long, but it was enough to just absolutely turn it into a skating rink. But I remember the first lap. Charlie ends up getting third in XC1, I believe. But his first lap, he put it in a creek down over the hill, and I kind of just latched onto him after that. So that's what really helped like pull me to the front. XC1 in the overall. So.
I always wonder this coming from XC2. Yeah, you had a bunch of races that year where you were up there, and then you even have lap times as fast as the 450 guys. And we're like, oh, this could be the day a 250 guy is going to win the overall. And then it wouldn't quite materialize to win the race for you or other fast XC2 guys. Is there a strategy at play where, you know, you're going all out on the first couple laps to just catch those guys, and maybe XC1 guys are kind of waiting to get that extra 10th on the last lap, and that's where they maybe put it to the XC2 guys? I've always wondered about race strategy. Now that you're both experienced in XC1, does that happen? Like that last lap, they step up maybe?
Yeah, it's only natural. I mean, you're in the premier class, and the guys are more fit, they're more experienced. So I was fairly young. I was 20, and I remember I just hang it out and just try to get away from JT and Jesse Robinson back then. So I didn't really have like any sort of strategy in the XC2 class. It was like just go as hard as I can for as long as I can, and whatever happens, happens. So right now it's mitigate risks and minimize my the chances I take. So.
Did you go into blackout mode in the last lap in these days, or was that more of a to win the overall in XT1? You've talked about how gnarly the last lap is these days.
I was probably like blackout like the last 2 laps.
Whoa!
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting, but also Strang, that was a heck of a swap right there.
Yeah, I remember that. I do remember that from this race, and that's how it slipped. Like this base here is kind of sandy, and so that's how it's slippery. You can tell it is. I may have hit a rock. It was kind of rocky there too, but yeah, that could have been a big one. I mean, it would have been cool to catch it on camera, but
yeah. Now, 10 years later,
a tree down right here hanging across, like it's still there today.
Yeah.
Oh, you're on a charge, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, you can see how slick it is here. That has to be so tough.
Yeah, I remember almost going through the fence down at the end of the pits there.
Hey, Caleb, you're pretty sharp with the memories of this. Are you like that with a lot of races, or is this one for some reason happen to stick out? Or can you name a year and a track and you remember a decent amount of details? How does that work?
I've got a pretty visual memory, so I remember races really well, like most of them. I think the only person that probably remembers races and stuff that happens during races better than me is Charlie. We were talking in your day, like he can mimic, like he can replay an entire like 3-hour GNCC, like just name the date and the place that he was racing.
Which guy's that? Who is that again?
Charlie Mullins.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Ah, all right, we'll get him on some of these then. I'm telling you, Strang, Corey B, keeping the heat on, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So there you go, Caleb. That's you following Charlie, right? Like you were talking about.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, I caught him on the first lap. I think he crashed on the start, and then we caught him like in the first mile of the race, and he was like down over this ravine in a creek. And, he got back going and got away from me a little bit on like the first lap, and when it started drizzling down the pit stop, when it started drizzling, I caught back up and I just kind of keyed off over the rest of the race, and I knew I had to be up there for the race.
And it's funny watching this too, because you can see how much the soil changes just throughout that whole track. Because you got places that are super slick, in the pits there, and even that road crossing there, that's what we call the phone booth, and that was super slick. But then there, like 30 seconds before that, there's dry dirt. It's bizarre how Steele Creek does that anytime it rains. There's places that get really bad and places that are still really good.
Yeah, it looks like it's getting worse and worse with the
yeah.
each lap here.
Like I said, I think it's just the sections. The TV crew always seems to go to the gnarliest section of the track, but like that little section with the ruts there has always been bad, and it just, if there's moisture in the ground, that section can get bottomless. So I think if it had really been raining, that section there would have been really bad, where right now it's kind of just typical GNCC, That's probably about perfect conditions.
Pretty good battle here. There's Wibbly guys all pulling their goggles, it looks like, as well. Yeah, Wibbs, that's right. When he switched to Yamaha, they put him on a WR, not a YZ.
Yeah, and the funny, Charlie got to ride a YZ.
Yeah, because he was like the support deal, right, through the Obermeyer team.
Yeah, so it was. I think I remember some people being upset about that, but I don't know if that's correct. But I think Thad and Wibbs had to ride the WR, and Charlie got to ride the YZ. So I think he was a little better off there in that boat.
Yeah. Charlie had a good year that year on the YZ, as opposed to the WR guys. All right, Josh, look at you got this one. And I think we're coming up on the hill climb part. So if explain this, I don't know which one of you guys knows it best. Was it just the mud that made this hill climb so bad, or was it a bottleneck or trees down? Like what made it impassable?
The riders.
Just a bottleneck?
Yeah. So it was, I think, yeah, it was the riders, but again, like, because Steele Creek just goes up and down. I think it was in a uphill section that had been cut out by a skid steer, so you couldn't get out of it to get up the hill. So there was just the one line, and I think just the guys kept getting stuck.
Oh, so yeah, so you could actually hear it on the radio right there. I believe that was Buren saying, you know, I'm out here at the 7 mile mark, and you know, it looks like there's nobody in the woods. They all got to be somewhere.
Yeah, Buren said he got up there with his 4-wheel drive ATV.
Oh yeah, 4-wheel drive, yeah.
See, this hill is looks like it gets fairly tricky too.
Yeah, I remember the chop always gets super gnarly around that right there. It's like I was watching this race with Charlie actually, and I always that 250F that I had on the time, man, it was like a tractor. It just I remember it was so good. It's kind of like good traction.
Oh, there we go.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, Wibbs.
4 minutes later.
Wibbs decides I'm going to climb this hill anyway.
And
this is what you guys are talking about. There's just nowhere to go.
Yeah, and I think the camera couldn't even get up. There was more riders further up the hill.
Yeah,
like when.
Yeah. And that's it. We call the race right then and there. So what was the reaction at the time? Obviously, Josh, it worked for you, as far as getting the win, but do you think it was okay to do that, or you think that was lame?
No, I mean, I got the win, so I was okay with it.
Yeah.
But I think, the hardest thing for me was, I think Hollywood was there, Caleb's mom, and I think that were the only kind of people that knew what they were doing. They were the only guys that were there, and they were the ones that were getting radio from someone else. So, like, Hollywood was telling me to stop, but then you're like, well, Hollywood's not the boss, so you're not real sure if I was to really stop or keep going. And then finally, I think we heard Jeff or someone on the radio saying it was called off. So, and by that stage, I think there was myself, Corey, Caleb, and Charlie there, and I swear it felt like a while, like maybe a minute or two, and then some riders had cleared out, and then Wibbs comes just blasting by us all. Gets to the top of the hill and just takes off, and I'm and I don't know, just shaking my head.
Yeah, I mean, he made it. He kept going, and they turned you guys around. Were like, "Hey, that's over," and then had to go chase Wibbs down.
Yeah.
Was Wibbs told? Like, Wibbs knew that it didn't matter, right? Like, the race was
over. No,
over.
Because he got to the back. Like there was some lap riders that had cleared out by the time he got there, so he just pinned it up around. Probably just Wibbs had his eyes closed and that sort of stuff, and probably just pinned it past us. Didn't even see us and just kept going. I don't think he really knew it was called off until maybe the finish line.
I don't think he really cared. He was just trying. He didn't think they were really going to call it off, probably. But I remember it probably took him a solid 4 or 5 minutes just to get from where we were around the bend and then to the top. So, because there was still more people stuck on the hill in front of him, and he was trying to get over on this bank that's just vertical and loose dirt. So I remember coming around the turn and seeing you and Corey, and I was like, hell yeah. I was like, they're right there. And I was in the video, I was pushing my bike, try to get up behind them. And that's when they pretty much said, yeah, they're going to call the race, and which made sense because where that hill was and how the track was, there was no way to reroute it without being on the exit road to the facility. So they had to, let people leave and not have the racetrack on the asphalt there, not the asphalt, but the gravel road. So it just it worked out. I was okay with it. I got third and won XC2 too. So
So you had trust back then to realize, okay, I think it is called. I don't need to try to scratch my way to the top of this hill. Like, did you guys believe it, or was there a small part of you thinking, man, I might not believe this and I need to go?
Well, I mean, when I first got there, there was like I couldn't do anything anyway. Like I said, the track was cut into the hill there, so there was the quads race on Saturday. So there's a left tire track and a right one, and they were both filled up like the whole hill. So by the time we got there, it's like you just have to wait till the people cleared out anyway. So there wasn't much we could do until the race was called or they were cleared out.
Caleb, did you pretty much know at that point, or was there a small part of you thinking, oh man, maybe that's not? It's like a rumor almost in the woods, I'd feel at that point.
Yeah, when they first said it, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, that's never happened before. Like that can't happen. But
right,
after like evaluating the situation, and they can't reroute the track, and then they can't reroute it fairly, even if they could at that point, because we're all up in this valley. So the race was over half done. Like there's like a lap and a half left. So it was, it was pretty crazy, pretty wild. But I don't think we've ever gone up that hill again. So.
Interesting. Hey, have you guys ever seen that in any other race where a section got so bad that they had to end it? Either one of you guys in all your years?
I haven't.
No, not end the race. No.
That's funny.
Was there I don't know, Weege or Jared, I have a feeling Charlie and Wibbs were switched positions when they got to the hill, and because they went back to the last checkpoint or the last lap, the positions changed. Do you remember that?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think that's what I remember. Wibbs being kind of mad, and I think that's probably why.
Yeah, because maybe it might have been they might have went back to the last lap when they went through the checkpoint, and Charlie might have been in third. Because I'm pretty sure Charlie Wibbs missed out on the podium, and I have a feeling he might have been in third at the time, or fourth overall, or whatever at the time.
Oh, so he didn't just pass him because he made the hill. He might have passed him before they got there.
I think I can't really remember. Yeah. Someone else might have known, but I have a feeling I remember we were waiting on the podium because there was a dispute.
Yeah. So the results were actually based off the previous lap.
Yeah.
Is what it ended up being. So he got him there, in the middle of that lap, and I understandably he was a little upset.
Yeah.
And then RIP, you don't use that hill anymore, Bolt On.
No. I remember, I want to say it was 2014 or so, when Barry Hawk was laying out the wood sections of the tracks. Barry put it in, and we said, yeah, we'll see what happens. And I think it just sprinkled just a little bit, and we said, nope, let's just forget it. And we never, literally, we've been down it, but we've never been back up that hill again.
Yeah, because something happens, like you can't do anything with it. Like you can't.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go. Literally nowhere to go.
That's a wild one. Strang, real quick, the rest of that season, actually, I believe Charlie went on a run for a little while, put some pressure on, but you ended up winning the title. So a lot of stuff from 2010, I got to imagine, sticks out. That's pretty special because you got that championship.
Yeah, it does. It all does. I was trying to think. I think I won Steele Creek and Big Buck, and then I think Charlie won in a battle down to pretty much the finish line at Loretta's when we used to go there. So, and then I can't remember. I think I had a big crash at Yadkinville, and then that's when Charlie went on a bit of a tear, and I think we were like 4 points going into the summer break or something. So it was way too close for comfort. And then back from the summer break, I had a couple of good races, and I was able to wrap it up a round early, which is always good. So, for the most part, 2010 was a solid year. I was happy, and like I said, I was a kid, so I just wanted to go race and go win, and I was having a blast then, so it was good.
And that was a strange move when you went to California. You were in North Carolina like most people are, and then you went to California for a few years. What was the reason to do that? And now you have actually come back these days.
Oh, hang on for a minute.
No, we might have lost you.
Nah, I'm still here. Am I?
Oh, okay.
Something's happened.
Can you not see us?
No, I can't see you guys.
Okay, that's the problem.
Yeah.
We can see you.
Not sure.
You're drunk. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys can. I don't need to
good.
look at you guys if you.
Yeah, you're good. There ain't nothing worth looking at over here.
Yeah, we don't need to see you, bro.
What was the question?
Yeah, you
again?
went to California, which is kind of weird for GNCC guy those days. You were right in North Carolina, where almost everybody is, and you left for a while. Now you're back. But what was the reason for the California move?
Well, I don't know, man.
Good answer.
Well, that's where. So Mike Webb, he lived out there at the time,
Yeah.
and then Rodney was out there as well, and I had a girlfriend that lived out there too. So I think there was a few reasons why I moved out, and in the end, I'm happy I moved out there for a couple of years. I would never live there again, but I feel like I met a lot of people in the industry, and it was good for my racing career to move out there for a while and get to know a lot of people and that sort of stuff. But I much prefer it here in North Carolina now. So it was cool to go out there, and I was doing a lot of things by myself. Like I'd fly to the races every weekend by myself, and I had to kind of start from scratch with friends and all that back in California. But overall, the 3 years that I was there, I enjoyed it, and I'm happy that I moved out for the race. And I feel like it made me a better rider there at the time. But yeah, I wouldn't move back there anyway.
Hey, KR, you've been North Carolina based for a long time, and you got your place in Florida. How much time do you end up spending in California with the factory team and that kind of stuff?
Hardly any nowadays.
Yeah.
There was a time where where KTM actually had it in our contract where we had to spend at least a month's time in California, just riding and testing and whatever you're not. But nowadays, like I go out for the photo shoot and the end of November or early December, and that's pretty much it. So it's nice not to have to go out there. I've got everything here that we need, and then or everything here in North Carolina, and then in Florida, and I'm pretty well established. So I don't really feel that there's like much of a necessity or need to go out there anymore.
Cool. And one last thing, Josh, today's your birthday. We're throwing that in the mix too.
Yeah, a couple of birthday beers for the boys.
All right. It's past noon, so we'll let that slide.
I know, that's what you were late to the party. I was telling the fellas, I was like, it's a bit early to have a beer. And then we were waiting for you. We kept waiting for you, and I was like, I'll have a beer. We're just late.
Oh, okay. Well, then I actually will take credit. I helped you. I gave you a reason.
There was actually one more thing I was gonna say. Like, you look at the video from today, and then if you looked at the videos from now, I just feel like the speed. I feel like I was the best rider in 2010, and if I looked at videos of myself then and now, I would lap myself. not like physically, but I just feel like the speed nowadays, even the XC2 guys, their technique and the speed of everyone is a lot faster than it was back then. So it's cool to go back and watch races and then talk about it with Caleb and you guys. I think it's cool to see how different or how much the sport's progressed.
Yeah, so even though, you won the first 3 races in a row that year, you didn't win the first 3 races in a row this year, but you think you might be going as fast, if not faster now, but just everybody's going faster? Is that kind of what it is?
I believe I'm going a lot faster than I was in 2010. But yeah, I think everyone is going faster. And I mean, you got to give credit to the bikes, and everyone has trainers, and it's more, I feel like, but maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, it was more of a still off-road racing was maybe still kind of a hobby. People were having fun, where now I feel like it's more of a job for guys like Caleb and myself. So we take it a little more serious, and I feel like the speed and the speed shows on the track.
What about you, Caleb? You see the same thing when you watch yourself from 10 years ago?
Yeah, I do. I notice a big difference, even in I always replay in my head. I got to this level just with Charlie. Me and Charlie, somehow we got to this level, and we kind of raised the bar. And the guys, Strang was hurt the year and missed the entire season, so he kind of missed out. But we took it to this level right here, and then some guys caught up to that level, Thad, and I don't know, it just keeps getting stepped up a little bit more. The competition gets stronger. And like I said, I've been, going to outings and riding motocross a lot. And, I've gotten, exponentially better on a motocross track. And that only transfers to more speed in the woods too. And just being more comfortable, charging the rough stuff and being in the zone. So It's really strange. It's really weird. Like I even see it now. Like I'm still progressing at 30 years old and getting better and more in tune with certain things. But it's cool. It's frustrating though because every time you get a little bit better, somebody catches up and is still nipping at you. So it's you don't really necessarily see the results straight away as far as the work you've been putting in. So I can remember back in like 15 when Charlie was hurt, and I was kind of like just in a league of my own, and the couple years after that, the guys caught up, and I just mentally I couldn't get back to the way things were in 2015. I was like, man, the races were so easy. Like I was winning by minutes, and my biggest marginal winning since then was like, I don't know, 10 seconds. So it's changed a lot, and the guys are getting better, and I've taken it more seriously. So it's good to see. It's fun. It makes it better, and yeah, it makes it evolution, man. It's crazy.
That's right. All right. We'll do one of these in 2030, and then we'll talk about how slow everybody looked in 2020. All right. Well, thanks for doing this, guys, and thanks for adding those little nuggets here at the end of the show. That's really interesting stuff that only the racers, I think, can see. What do you think, Bolton? Do they look faster to you?
Yeah, absolutely. These guys are. I remember going to the races then and being blown away at how fast everybody went. I go to the races now, and I'm still just as blown away. And actually, I did have a question for both of you guys. Josh, you can go first. Obviously, we're doing this to try to keep everybody entertained during the current COVID-19 pandemic. In the middle of this, how has this affected you guys' lives?
I think I mean, Caleb can speak for himself, but for me, it hasn't affected me all that much. Like I've still been able to do my training and that sort of stuff. I've backed off the riding side of things a little bit, but for the most part, what I do on an everyday basis is by myself for the most part. So if I can get out up to, like I've been to Caleb's new track a couple of days, and if I can get up there, it's not like the guys that are there that are riding, we're not hugging each other and kissing each other's faces and that sort of stuff, sharing spoons for lunch and that. But it's like, for me, it hasn't changed a whole lot. Sure, we're not going racing, which is unfortunate, but as far as during the week goes, it's fairly similar to what we were doing pre-corona. So I know the wife hasn't been at work, so she's been teaching online kindergarten, and for her it's a little stressful, and she gets to keep Maverick though, so it's good. For us, it's not such a big deal. I mean, it sucks that it's happened, but it'll get better eventually.
Yep. And Caleb, same question.
Yeah, I live out in the country, so it's I drive around and got this little redneck gas station grill down the street, so I go there for lunch. I've been working at the track the last month now, getting that place dialed in, so it's given me a lot of free time to kind of worry about that and get my new track dialed in stress free and just kind of be a little bit more chill on the training and riding. Like I've still been at it, still doing like the same thing, just not really gaining anything, just kind of not losing what I had. So it's nice to be able to be in this like stress-free environment to get stuff done that I already had like on my plate that I was worried about. But now it's getting everybody like a chance to like start fresh, and like it's going to be like round one again. So I had like some momentum going, and the right direction. Now it's almost like starting back over at ground zero, where summer break you're probably going to have to deal with guys you wouldn't expect you to have to deal with at round 5. So it's definitely going to throw a wrench in the racing plans. I feel like it's going to make it tougher. Some of these guys are probably taking advantage of the time off and getting better, and which is good too. We got a lot of guys out hurt, and that we're probably going to miss probably over half the year. So now they might make 70% of the races. So it'll be good for them and get them back and get them back healthy and back out on the track.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, we look forward to racing at some point. They just put out another notice today. Didn't affect GNCC yet, but I don't know, maybe around June or late May we'll be back underway. So keep looking at the GNCCracing.com site for the latest in the schedule. Happy birthday, Josh. Thanks for joining us, Caleb. It's been a fun show. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks for having us on.
All right. And thanks to you too, Bolt On. We'll be back for our next episode of Behind the Bars. Thanks for joining us, everybody.